got a majority Republican state house. Majority, 8 of 9 constitutional officers are Republicans. The governor just appointed a Democrat. Don't ask me why. You expect it to be done. The other side doesn't. The other side is relentless. They come in, they talk to us about something, they're trying to separate us from our money and give it to them. They raise their, which used to be evidence-based study, as they want to, do something crazy. And I was like, oh, can I see this? Can I read this? Oh, this is it. This is not it. Because it never adds up. But they're there every day. I watched one of the hearings before 2 senators yesterday, and there were about 10 groups that came, and I don't know if there was a Republican that came through there at all, of the 10 groups. The left sets the framework. The left provides the academic and intellectual capital that comes into much of what's thought about down there. And so when we get mad at General Assembly, we have to say, well, what's our role? Why aren't we down there? So we've got to do a better job about that. And I hope you get a chance. If you don't, just write a letter. Once a week or something, pick out one of your representatives or somebody you know of, somebody you've heard of, and tell them that you surely hope there's better, more conservative government because you're just worried about the country. You don't have to do a whole lot. You just got to keep letting them know that you're out here and you know, because the disconnect between the conservative people of South Carolina and the government is absolutely total. There's no connection whatsoever. And that's not just true in Columbia, but it's also true in a lot of city governments and county governments. And again, it's because of these well-funded 501c3s. The minute a city manager gets hired, there's somebody that says, you do a good job, we're going to send you up to the Riley Institute for a week up there. Oh, yeah. And then there's another Riley Institute, a different Riley, down in Charleston, both left wing. And if you're really good, we're going to send you up to the Aspen Institute out west. Yeah, or maybe even one of the local TED Talks. I mean, it starts immediately. They will never hear from a Republican. But so it's nonstop. So what am I trying to say? State government is not a bad operation. It just needs conservatives. We've got some conservatives elected, and we've got more than we think. We just don't push them. We don't require them to do anything. We're not talking to them. And if you can manage that in a proper and respectful way, they'll respond. But we got to make them know. And that's your job. And I'll help you any way I can. We enjoy our job. I want y'all all to be rich, so check your name. And to show you how this works, Barack and Michelle Obama are owed money at 1600 Pennsylvania. They couldn't find the president and the first lady of the United States. And y'all smug Republicans are sitting there saying, I didn't get any money down there. You do, you're on this list, I guarantee you. Anybody any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So what is the website for that?
It's treasurer.sc.gov, treasurer.sc.gov. There's a fake site out there that will charge you for the same thing. They're not bad people. If you don't want to mess with yourself, you can pay somebody. But you should come to the Treasurer's website. And it's a free search. Look up everybody you know. My mother, when she was 86, gave her an iPad. Big mistake. But we gave her and Daddy and I were walking through the back of the house and going out to the back porch. We're going to have a cup of coffee because, like all old men, it was 110 degrees, and we're going out back. He was going to have a smoke and a cup of coffee. I was going to have a cup of coffee. And I heard her say, Betty Jean, this is Mary Knox from class of 47 in Inman. And talk sense, right? And I just want you to know that my son has money down at the treasurer's office in your name. It's $560. and I said, let's get. I didn't know what was going on. Get outside. And I said, Daddy, how about Mama? Isn't that something? Her age, figured out how to work that iPad, look up her friends, and is calling them. I actually found the phone numbers. I never know. He said, you don't know a thing about women, do you? I said, evidently not. And he says, she wasn't calling to give her friend money. She was going to let her classmate friend know that her son was the state treasurer. And I saw the women nodding their heads. They knew. You can do the same thing. You just know me, and you tell them if it's a lot of money, and you find they find a lot of money for themselves because of you. You just tell them. I said it's state law; they got to share.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
This issue with the banking surveillance that's just shown up, what are we gonna do about that? Here, I don't know if that's part of your,
I'm the chairman of the state banks, not the federal banks, but the state banks in South Carolina. And I get along real well with them. But they all laugh at me because I tell them, if Joe Biden or whoever comes along behind him on the left, if they win, we will not have state banks in 2 years. Now, they just think I'm crazy. But once before, they loaded the state banks up with regulations. And so everybody merged up. You remember when all the banks were going away? Now, the bankers themselves, a lot of them made a lot of money, but they make money anyway. That's what they do. That's why they're bankers. And we like that about it. We don't want a poor banker. You know, that's not a good thing. But I'm terrified of the financial outlook because the federal government wants to be involved with everything. And if I were Biden, if I were a Marxist, would I want to deal with thousands of banks, or would I want to deal with 25 or 50? I'd want 50. And I want my finger on every one of them. And so I'm very afraid of that. I think the banks will wake. I believe they'll wake up. If a Republican wins, I think maybe the threat goes away. But we don't want a country where the only way you can borrow money is to go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or JP Morgan. It's just not good. So we're working hard on that. We work with the federal regulators on many things. We talked to them about the interpretations of rules, but all of these statutes, the Bank Surveillance Act, CDBC, and all that stuff, it's just misery in a package. None of them are good.
So you recommended that we go move to state chartered banks, and people, is there a list that we can send to people, is that helpful? If we could build them up, would it be harder to
Yes.
get rid of?
And we used to all deal with state chartered banks. It hadn't been, it was in our lifetimes that they allowed banks to go across state lines, and now they're all gone. But there are a lot of good state banks, and even some good regional banks too,
Right.
that are in, say, 3 or 4 states. But you can know those people. You just, you go into these other banks, they're trying to close down every branch they can, whereas a lot of state chartered banks are opening branches. And we've got some things we hadn't announced behind the scenes that we're trying to work out about ways we can incentivize more lending, especially in communities that don't have, rural communities, right? And so we're working on that now.
Is there a list of state chartered banks?
Yeah, on my website, and I'll send one up. You just remind. Yes, sir.
Two-part question. First, what do you think of credit unions? And second, are we doing anything to protect South Carolina as a state? I.e., some of the states are going to gold backs. There are actual polymer with gold on it, or gold itself to back up the state treasury.
A couple things. The first question, state chartered credit unions, that's part of what we do. We love them. We love them. Now, there's actually a problem. The national credit unions, which do a good job at what they do, but they're behemoths. The national agency that runs them lets them do whatever they want. The point was with credit unions, they don't pay as much in the way of taxes or any taxes, but what they do in place of that is really work hard to serve people that don't have a lot of money. They want both. And so now they've gone interstate, they have multiple states, they're huge institutions, and we're fighting a battle right now, it's behind the scenes. Some of the large federal credit unions want to buy our state banks. And I've interpreted the law, and I think I'm on good grounds, but we're saying no. Well, they're not happy. So, and then secondly, about gold. I had a long conversation with the treasurer of Georgia, I guess it was Tuesday, and we were both friends with the comptroller down in Texas, and that job is a behemoth. He's the treasurer and the comptroller, and it's Texas, it's a country. They made progress down there in gold, and that's good that they get out there in front, because we need somebody out front. But the treasurer and I were talking about from Georgia is how would the small states do it? Because it's harder for a small state to scale. Can you actually do it? And you end up depending on a private company. Now, some people get really hung up on that, but banks are private, or they're non-governmental, I should say, not private, because they'd be public corporations. But you end up with, say, you've got a warehouse full of gold, who's gonna protect that? You know, and they've had some scares, there's another state that's done this, where there was some people who weren't particularly serious, but they were gonna break in. But the guard said, well, we're not gonna kill anybody, because, you know, we're a private security firm, they're high tech. So, okay, so if you got all the South Carolina's gold over there, guys say, oh, well, you know. But we are looking at all of that. It is massively complex, because the Constitution is very clear. When it comes to money, gold is not money. The federal government controls it all. And that's a real problem. But that's a benefit of gold, is that they don't control it. So we are, like I said, we spent 2 hours on the phone.
There's 5 states that have joined the gold back.
Yeah.
South Dakota just joined.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Utah, yeah.
Oh,
Is Wyoming one? Is Wyoming one?
Again, Wyoming,
Yeah.
New Hampshire, of all places.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there's
right.
about 5 states right now, I don't know if it's taking long, and they're about our size, you know,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But they're very limited in scope, and they probably will never be bigger than that. That's why we're talking about, can we join together? And we do it in other things, and then we gotta make sure that it's profitable to us, and that we can get some kind of scale where we can do it, that doesn't need to be subsidized, and something that the federal government can easily shut down. So, but we're all working on it.
If I understand correctly, it's voluntary, so it's for businesses, whoever wants to accept it. So the government really allows it, it's not a part of it.
That's right, and it's not money. I mean, the Constitution is very clear. They decide how to mint it, everything about money is theirs, but it's not money. Yes, sir.
So basic problems of Republican faithfulness to the platform. How much do you think closed primaries would help? Or semi-closed primaries?
Yeah, I should know more about that, but I don't. I mean, it's just one of those things that the people who are into that, really into it, and I run every 4 years. I'm not running again. I'm done with it, so I'm really not interested now. But yeah, it's been long enough, believe me. My rosy disposition is said to be not so rosy. But I don't mean to dodge it. You know, like we might see it in New Hampshire, they have open primaries. So I don't mean to, I hate not being able to answer questions. I just hadn't studied it. You know, I'd probably be if this group if we took a vote and y'all put your hands up, I probably would, the winning side would be very happy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Steve, Curtis, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. You remember Steve Eisen, how
Yes. Oh, yeah.
across the road from your dad, right? Remember that time? Do you remember us trying several years ago to establish a gold currency in South Carolina, an alternate currency? And what failed there? I remember I went down to the State House and we met in caucus rooms, we met with international people and stuff. Why did that fail? Because you can see now with the digital currency and the way inflation is $34 trillion, I know you gotta be scared to death about what's happening to America, you and I being such conservatives. Talk to me about why did we fail again?
We have a bill that we're gonna be talking about. Rob Harris is gonna be talking about this.
One is, there's 1,000 reasons why you can't do it. I mean, and that, you know, it's like, it's 1,000 reasons why you can't do it, but there's like one really good reason that outweighs all of those. And if it starts at the treasurer's office, then the General Assembly will slide it. I will not slide it if it starts over there, but it's harder for them because who's gonna go out front and get their head lopped off if it doesn't work? Now, I don't mind that because in the executive branch, we're responsible for what happens in our office. And like I said, last night we had $44 billion out. If we invested in something fake and it goes away, it's me. I can't blame it on anybody. But if you're in the General Assembly and you got 150 people voting for a judge, and the judge gets drunk tomorrow night and runs over a duck, and it's in the newspaper, you know, I'm just one guy, you know, who knew? You know, I just took leadership responsibility. So progress is being made, but it's hard. One thing we had back then, and this is tangential, but it mattered. When Bitcoin went sky high and then went sky low, that affects anything that's not traditional. And if you start talking about gold, and they say, well, we saw what happened to Bitcoin. Not the same thing. But but you see, so we're on it, and I suspect it's gonna be like guns. If we were to lose the election in November, just like we did before in 2000, whatever it was, when everybody went and bought guns, it may be that something bad like that really puts the impetus on it. But we're kind of working on it every day. Not making a lot of progress, but working on it every day.
So you believe that if things get a lot worse, there's a much better chance that South Carolina can do what we tried to do, what was that, 8 or 10 years ago?
You're a visionary, man. You're reminiscing about the future. I'm with you. Again, it's a little bit like the question of primary. I'm with you. We got to figure it out. But there literally are 1,000 reasons that we can't do it. We have to bat them down every day. There's something. And there's something I'll call an office and say, well, there's this law here, and there's this case in Texas, or whatever. And you say, okay, your lawyer spends a week trying to figure that out. So it's like I said, there's 1,000 reasons. We just have to do better. And I'm glad I got out here today because I see what's on everybody's mind. And I got to go back and jump on my people. It's their fault, it's not my fault. You know?
But how do you talk to us about a regular person? How do you pay your mortgage, or how do you go buy a loaf of bread with any of this goes back? And how does it work? That's what I don't understand.
Well, that's the part that I don't have to worry about. It's my part is to make it available. But you don't have to, like, yeah. I mean, it's like, what's the, yeah, it's an alternate form of currency. It's like a Bitcoin in that way. But not everybody may take it. But they might, because you have to. These are some of the problems, right?
It's like Liberty Dollar.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, could you address, I kind of like to call it dumb tax, the state lottery, which I think is really immoral, because I think it just pulls a whole bunch of money out of the poorest parts of our state, poorest citizens. Where is all this money going? What's the state of it? And, you know.
There's a whole bunch of it. That's the 155 million I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's just a portion of it. Do I have it here? I might have it right here. How much money we brought in last year? Briefcase. I've got my briefcase. I'll show it to you when I get down there. It's the reason why it is the federal government's involvement in the student loan program is the reason why college costs so much. It's insane what colleges. It's easy for me to say this because I'm not in the General Assembly, but if I were in the General Assembly, I would put zero money for any of them. Because it is absolutely ridiculous. The things they have, you go out and you ride through the countryside, you ride through half the cities, you see how people live, and then you go over and you look at a $90 million indoor football stadium, and they're gonna build a $70 million this and $1 billion for the medical school and veterinary clinics up there. They came to, I'm sure the people arguing a bit about this, but Clemson wants to build their own veterinary school. I said, well, fine, it's gonna take you 10 years, and I think we figured up that it would be 10 years before they got the first graduates out. I said, why don't we take the money we're gonna spend and the money we're save and just go out and buy the veterinarians and bring them here? Because if we could buy 500 veterinarians or something, bring them to practice here, we'd have 10 years of practice. I mean, at the University of South Carolina Medical School, they graduate 100 students a year in Columbia. 50 of them leave the state the first day, never to come back. And we're going to give them $400 million so they can do that in bigger numbers. None of it makes sense except they come before the General Assembly and they get what they want. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, in the committee that sees it, when Clemson finished its presentation, the room erupted with claps. I mean, they charge an absolute fortune to go to it cost me $366 to become the genius that I am now, right? $366 a semester at Carolina. In 4 years, it skyrocketed to $10 to $376, and then they brought in student loans. And I can tell you, I can't say much about this because it's an hour. The Treasurer's Office was intimately involved in the student loan program. And Obama closed it, I'm glad he did, right about the time, closed kind of, about the time I came. The 501c3s that were involved with that were making so much money you can't imagine. Back then, this is 12 years ago, the head guy of one of those 501c3s was making $650,000 a year. And we wonder, when we're partnership ended, you'd think we have a partnership with this group, so you know, we'll have half the money and they'll have half the money. There's always money left over. We got $100 million. They got $440 million. The whole thing, not just the part the student saw, but the background, the underlying accounting and the procedures that went through it, the insurance, every bit of it was crooked as hell. Every bit of it. And that's why we have woke colleges that changed the world, because they had so much money come to them that nobody could deny them anything. Yes, sir.